Hi, my name is George Saldana, and I want to do this video on the 280th District Court in Harris County. Now, for those that don't know, the 280th District Court in Harris County, all they do is protective orders. And apparently it's a confidential court. And I want to go over that because some of the things that these judges tell the people or the citizens is absolutely wrong. Whether they know it's absolutely wrong, whether it's a form of intimidation or a threat, these issues are the issues that we need to bring to light. The 280th court was designated as the protective order court. And this judge believes that that court, since it's a protective order court, is confidential. So let's do a deep dive into this and let's talk about it. This is the new district court judge in the 280th. Her name is Judge Dianne Curvey. Now, the 280th court judge that was there before Judge Curvey was Judge Barbara Stalder. And if some of y'all haven't been keeping up or don't know about Judge Barbara Stalder was pretty much the Hitler of protective order courts. And basically, she honored about 94% of all the protective orders that came before her. And so we've had a watch group, a grassroots organization, start watching this court, start seeing how things are conducted. And we've been putting unethical business practices on blast that happen in these courts. Now, you would think that this judge, Dianne Curvey, that we're seeing here, she's been a practicing attorney because in order to take the bench or put your name on the ticket, you have to meet the constitutional requirements to be a judge. You have to be a practicing lawyer, you got to be over a certain age, and you got to be willing to uphold the law and the Constitution. You take that oath. So we're going to deep dive and talk about this clip, and we're going to tell you why it's important that you know your rights.
Absolutely not. So, you don't have to put anything in this court.
Understand.
Okay, listen to me, please. This is a confidential court. Unless you have business here, you are excused.
I am actually have been retained by Mr. French.
You're not an attorney.
No, but I am press.
So, press is not relevant here, sir. You may step out of the courtroom.
Is that in the threat of arrest?
No.
Okay. I'm going to exercise my First Amendment right as a member of the
You
House.
have a First Amendment right in a confidential court. So, if you would like to go into custody today, I can help
So,
you with that.
it is under threat of arrest.
If you would like to go into custody today, I will be happy to help you with that. I have asked for you to leave my courtroom because the only people who can be retained in this court are attorneys. I'm asking you to leave my courtroom. You have 5 seconds in which to do so.
I will leave your courtroom under threat of arrest. I will leave your courtroom under threat of arrest. Thank you.
Have a great day.
There's several things that were said in that video that's alarming. One of the things was you don't have a First Amendment constitutional right. Another comment that was made was you have 5 seconds to leave. He asked if he was being made to leave under threat of arrest. At first she said no. Then she said she would help him go to jail. I mean, all of this is concerning, and it should be a huge concern for everybody that's in the Harris County Family Court system. So let's deep dive into what this court really is. So my first stop to determine whether this court is a confidential court or not is to find out where it talks about courts. So I went to the Judicial Department, Article 5 in the Texas Constitution, and this is what Section 1 says. Section 1, judicial powers vested in courts. Legislative power regarding courts. The judicial power of this state shall be vested in 1 Supreme Court, 1 Court of Criminal Appeals, in courts of appeals, in district courts, in county courts, in commissioners' courts, in courts of justice of the peace, and in such other courts as may be provided by law. as may be provided by law. The legislature may establish such other courts as it may be deemed necessary and prescribe the jurisdiction and organization thereof, and may conform the jurisdiction of the district court and other inferior courts thereto. And again, February 15th, 1876, and the last time it was touched was in 1980. Now, I don't know about y'all. I'm not a very good reader, but I can put two and two together. I don't think anywhere in this Texas Constitution did it say confidential anywhere. It doesn't say anything about confidential courts. As y'all heard in the video, Dianne Curvey, or Judge Curvey, says that that is a confidential court. Well, I'm sorry, but the Texas Constitution doesn't allow for confidential courts. But let's keep digging. So Chapter 24 of the Government Code is the code or the chapter for all district courts in the state of Texas. If you're in another state, you can look through your government code, through your state, and look for district courts. But here in the state of Texas, Chapter 24 is for the district courts. This doesn't pertain to county courts or JP courts. They have their own chapter. But for this issue here, the 280th District Court, we're going to go through Chapter 24 of the Government Code. Okay, so taking a cruise down Chapter 24, you see Section 24.001, age qualifications of the judge. A district judge must be at least 25 years old in order to be a judge. 24.07 jurisdiction. The district court has jurisdiction provided by Article 5, Section 8 of the Texas Constitution. So let's make a stop here at Section 24.021 of the Texas Government Code. Incompetency. This is one of my favorites. For the purposes of Article 15, Section 6 of the Texas Constitution, incompetency means 1, a gross ignorance to official duties. 2, gross carelessness in the discharge of official duties. Or 3, the inability or unfitness to promptly or properly discharge official duties because of a serious mental or physical defect that did not exist at the time of the judge's election. This was first legislated in 1987, and it hasn't been touched since then. So we just went through the government code, and it said Article 15, Section 6. So I got curious. So I went down to the Texas Constitution's website. I looked up Article 15, and it says impeachment. So they said Section 6. I see Section 1, impeachment by House of Representatives, trial of impeachment by certain officers of the Senate. But that's not the section we're looking at. Let's go to Section 6. Oh, Section 6 of Article 15 of the Texas Constitution says removal of district court judges by the Supreme Court. A lot of people seem to think or have heard that judges have absolute immunity. You have to remember that the Constitution was enacted to protect the people from government infringement, was to protect the people from government overreach or government intrusion. So, yes, district court judges can be held liable for their actions. So here we are in Chapter 24 of the Government Code, and we're going to start at the 1st Judicial District in Jasper, Newton, Sabine, and San Augustine counties. So let's scroll to the 280th. It might be a while. Scrolling. 75th Judicial District, Liberty County. Again, you know, if you're looking for your district court and what it is to be politically correct and legally correct, go to the Texas Government Code, Chapter 24. So let's see if we can find 280th. We're at 155th Judicial District, Austin and Fayette counties. And here we are. We finally found it. Section 24.457. So if you go to Section 24.457, 280th Judicial District, Harris County. The 280th Judicial District is composed of Harris County. Acts 25, 69th Legislature, Chapter 480, Section 1, effective September 1st, 1985. That's the only date it was legislated, was in 1985. It hasn't been touched since, so nobody has changed this to a confidential court. No one has made this a family court. No one has made this a criminal court. No one has made this a civil court. It says it's a 280th Judicial District, is composed in Harris County. It doesn't say any of that stuff about family, civil, or criminal. But let's continue. So one of the things I did to compare is I compared my other family district courts to the 280th. And so I was in the 257th court in Harris County. And if I went to section 24.434, the 257th is defined here. The 257th Judicial District, Harris County. The 257th Judicial District is composed of Harris County. And then it says B, the 257th Judicial District Court shall give preference to family law matters. Now, it says the 257th District Court shall give preference being the key word, to family matters. And if you notice, the 280th Court doesn't say shall give preference to family matters. If you go to section 24.491, and this is just for an example, the 345th Judicial District in Travis County, it says the 345th Judicial District is composed of Travis County. The 345th District Court shall give preference to civil matters. So now you've seen where the 280th, it doesn't say what it's supposed to hear. You hear the 257th say that it's supposed to give preference to family, and then you hear where the 345th is supposed to give preference to civil matters. And then we look at section 24.508, and again, this is just for an example. The 363rd Judicial District Court in Dallas County, the 363rd Judicial District Court is composed of Dallas County, and it says the 363rd District Court shall give preference to criminal matters. So you have courts that don't have any preferences. You have courts that give preference to family matters, and you have courts that give preference to criminal matters. At the end of the day, they're all district courts. They all have the same power as a district court judge. A district court judge in civil has the same district court powers as those in criminal, and so on with family and protective order courts, confidential protective order courts. But as I close out chapter 24 of the government code, you've noticed that all of these courts here, none of them say they're confidential courts. None of them say that you can't use your First Amendment right. They all say they're just where these courts are and what they shall give preference to. So now I went to Google and I want to see what the 280th District Court says about itself. So I punched in 280th District Court, Harris County, and this is what popped up. Judge Dianne Curvey is the name of the judge. It has her lovely picture there. And it says over here, family courts, civil courts, criminal courts, family courts, 245th, 247th, 257th, 280th Court. So she's labeled as a family court. But we just read the government code. She doesn't have any preferences. Okay, but like I said, those district court judges have the same power, again, as every other judge. So let's keep going. So you have her court staff, you have their emails and their phone numbers, just in case, because sometimes judges say that the public is harassing them. And if you're a public servant, you pandered to the voters to wear that robe and slam that gavel, and then you don't want the public to come watch you in your official capacity, I think there's an issue with that. And then when you want to say that people are harassing you for being a judge, you took that position. It says family court information, and it says notice effective immediately, scheduling information for the 280th, general docket information, let's keep reading. General policies for hearings, time limits, interpreters, court reporters instructions, exhibit instructions. Again, I'm not a very good reader, but I think I scrolled through all of this and I didn't see anywhere where it says it's a confidential court. So when the public wants to know about the 280th District Court, they can go to Google, they can type it in, and they can read everything that's on their page. That's for the public to know. So when you have people coming off the street, reporters, people from the press coming into these courtrooms, and then you're telling them that it's a confidential court and you threaten them with arrest, there's an issue there. There's a significant issue there because remember, the First Amendment allows you to talk against your government because why? Because the Constitution was there to protect the people from government overreach. So it is our constitutional right to walk into these courtrooms to observe and be able to report on the things that we observe. And I know that we live in 2024, but back in the day, people would actually go and sit in their courtrooms. And you actually had members of the press actually going in there and taking notes and talking about some of these high profile trials that were going on. So it's always been a First Amendment guarantee that you can go and observe your courts. The thought of being arrested and being threatened with arrest by this judge that's calling her court a confidential court says everything is wrong with that court. If she doesn't know the very basics of her job or what the government code describes her as or what she can do as a judge, she should not be a judge with that much power. And that's the problem. And so when judges are acting incompetent to the law, because could you really say that ignorance of the law is an excuse? I mean, you went to law school, you know more than I do. And why am I making these videos to help educate the public when you're telling people it's a confidential court? Nothing in the Constitution says it's confidential. Nothing in the government code says it's confidential, and nothing on the website says it's a confidential court. So let me just throw this one out there. So we all saw where on the website they said that the 280th was a family court. So you would assume that they know the family code. Well, look what I found in Chapter 54 of the Family Code. Public access to court hearings. Except as provided by this section, the court shall open hearings under this title to the public unless the court, for good cause shown, determines the public should be excluded. Now, you heard on the video that Curvey was just threatening to arrest somebody who's going to come sit in and watch the hearing. There was no good cause shown. She didn't say the reason why she was closing the hearing or why it was confidential. And again, we have to remember we have three branches of government. We have an executive branch, a legislative branch, and a judicial branch. That's high school government. And with that being said, the legislative branch legislates the laws. The judicial branch dispenses justice. They enforce the laws. And by no means does our Constitution allow the judicial branch to just legislate new laws. That's why we have a legislative branch, is to legislate, to make laws. And when you have a judge saying, hey, this is a confidential court, she's threatening people with arrest, that's a huge infringement, just not on my rights, but on everyone's rights, and everyone's rights that has a interest in that legal proceeding. District Court Judge Dianne Curvey does not have the power to change the law. She's part of the judicial branch. She just doesn't get to make her own laws because she deems them confidential or it's her court. She doesn't have that option. And that's why we have three branches of government. Some people may even come to her defense and say, hey, it's a policy of Harris County. But then again, my response to that would be Harris County doesn't have legislative powers to change that and to make it a confidential court. And I don't think it could ever be changed to a confidential court because, again, all courts shall remain open and the public shall have access. In conclusion, this is a protective order court. And what they do in protective order courts, they remove parents from their children based on allegations. And we already know that about the silver bullet and false allegations. But if we have a judge that ran for this position that's unqualified, that we could say is partially incompetent, she needs to be removed. She needs to step down. She needs to resign, whatever she needs to do. But if you don't know the bare fundamentals and the bare basics of law and you're removing people's children, that's an issue. And I think it's an issue of public concern. And that's kind of why I've made this video. There are no confidential courts. Things may be confidential within the hearing or in the trial, but there are no confidential courts. The courts shall remain open. And the reason courts are supposed to be open is so that court observers can observe their government in action. And when you're threatening people, you shouldn't be on that bench if you're threatening people from observing their government. That's one of the biggest issues that I have, is that now the government is infringing my right to hold them accountable to the letter of the law. So with that being said, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below.